Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dreams Unlimited Travel Podcast. My name is John Magi, and I will be your host. And in this episode, we're going to be telling you about our incredible Viking ocean cruise around Italy, part 2 of our 2-part series. I'm joined at the table by our panel of experts, Associate Producer Rhino Clavin.
Hello, everyone.
Client Services Manager for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Kevin Close.
Hi, everybody.
Agent for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Sean Folk.
Hi.
Chief Executive Officer for Dreams Unlimited Travel, Pete Werner.
Hey, everybody.
And back in our production facility, we have our producer, Craig Williams.
Hello.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thank you, everybody at home, for listening and watching.
Nobody
and
said
tuning
ciao.
in. What?
Nobody said ciao.
I don't know why you didn't say ciao. You had the opportunity.
Too embarrassed. I got the cold sweats. Sorry.
Oh, my God. Between people laughing at me from doing my intros and getting the cold sweats, it's going to be a rough show. As I mentioned, this is part 2 of a 2-part series. Last week we did part 1, where we talked about the actual ship itself. This week we're going to tell you about the ports of call and what we all did during our incredible, I have to say it again, incredible Viking ocean cruise around Italy.
An Italian sojourn.
Italian Sojourn. It was exciting. All right, so let's start out. We embarked the ship on March 24th. It was a Saturday. We did that in Rome. You don't actually get on the ship in Rome. You get on the ship in...
Civitavecchia.
Thank you. I was going to make Kevin say it because he messes it up every time. But we had spent all of us had spent some extra time in Rome. So we didn't really need to do the ship stuff because when you get on the ship, they offer excursions in Rome. They offer certain things you can do through Viking, but we kind of all did it on our own.
Yeah, because we got into Rome like 5 or 6 days before the cruise because we wanted to see stuff around Rome, and we went down to Florence one day and flew to
Romania. Yeah.
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do. That was actually really cool. That was a lot of fun.
So again, they offer the Viking offers a shore excursion in Rome. Did anybody do it? Did we look at it at all?
No.
Not this. I mean, we did the things that were on the excursion. There was stuff like go to the Colosseum and those types of things. So
if that's
that
is your only way to see Rome, then do it. But understand that the ship, and that's not just Viking. This is anything. The ship excursions to Rome are very, 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 very fast-paced. You're like, and here's this, now let's go, and then here's this, and then let's go. A lot of times they're walking tours. I call them running tours because, you're trying to see the Vatican, the Trevi Fountain, bless you, the Colosseum, all these other sites. In the span of 8 hours, 7 hours.
This particular cruise, a lot of times the cruise will overnight in its first port, especially with Viking. It didn't. So the next day we were somewhere else. So there's a very short window of what you could do that first day.
It's just my point being that if you have the option, it's better if you're doing a cruise like this, go into Rome a good solid few days early. Yeah. I like to do that anyway because of the jet lag. If I know, okay, we've got a thing going on Saturday, I definitely want to be in 2 or 3 days early, kind of give myself a chance to get acclimated so that, my cruise or my Adventures by Disney trip or whatever I'm doing isn't like the first few days aren't messed up because I'm dealing with...
I do have a quick question. If this were something that, say other cruising routes or in the future, like if Viking does Rome as like a 1 day on a stop from some other route, would you say it's better to do, would you guys recommend doing the Vatican as your day, or would you rather do, the Colosseum and a few of the other things? If you only got 1 day to
Well,
pick.
you usually, on a lot of those excursions, you do the Vatican, you do the Colosseum, do the Trevi Fountain, do...
highlights. It's usually
I
highlights.
don't see how
of
you
the
could
city.
do it.
No, you can. You can. I mean, but when you're doing it on a shore excursion, you usually have about 10 hours.
Wow.
Because it takes a good hour and a half to get from Civitavecchia
Right.
into Rome and vice versa. So it can be a harrowing day, but it is a great way to see all those highlights.
And there's options if you're not interested in one particular thing. You could do it yourself. You can also do what we've done on Mediterranean cruises in the past is you can hire a car service. So outside we get additional cost outside of your cruise fare. You can set it up with a local company, and then you can say, listen, these are the things I want to see. These are the things I want to do at my own pace. I do want to just say really quick, going back to going in early, we highly recommend that whenever you're starting a cruise overseas, you're traveling overseas, you absolutely should try to get in 1 day early.
A minimum.
At least.
A minimum 1 day early, because you don't want to miss your cruise. You don't want to show up that day, and if there's a flight delay or there's an issue with transportation, you could run into missing the cruise. So we always recommend at least 1 day early. Sorry, Craig.
Yeah, just in regards to Rome, I walked away loving that city way more than I thought I did. I mean, we were in there for 5 days, so it was time to go by the time we left. But looking back on it now, the greatest thing about that city wasn't hitting things like the Colosseum, Vatican, Trevi Fountain, Spanish Steps, like the iconic places. It was actually when you just went on a random stroll and got lost down an alleyway and then ended up finding something that you saw in a movie that you didn't even realize, like, that is right there. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the things I would say about Rome, is that if, like, with having enough days, it's great if you get to see all the highlights on a tour, but it's a city you kind of need to just get lost in. And I know that's a
true no
lot of
matter where you
European
go.
places, yeah,
true with a lot of
but
cities.
it really was for me, at least.
So again, shore excursions were offered through the ship. You could have done these highlights of the city and seen all the things. We did not do that. So our first overnight, we cruise overnight, and the next day we wind up in Naples, Italy. Now, was Naples the half day?
It was.
Yeah, it was
Yes.
a very short stop in Naples. Just real quick, Kevin and I did not get off the ship. We've been to Naples before. We know what's not there.
Yeah, we docked at noon,
Yeah.
and all aboard was 5:30. So this was a
short day.
really short
Yeah.
short day in Naples.
Did anybody do the included excursion in Naples?
No.
No,
Not in Naples.
I did. I know, like, part of that was a walking tour of Naples, a sightseeing tour of it. Kylie and I did get off the ship like right at noon, and the first thing we did was run up to like the city center because we were in Naples. We wanted pizza.
As I say,
That's-
everyone got off the ship
so-
to get pizza. Yeah.
Yeah, so before our tour, we ran up to do it, and it was one of those things, like, I've wanted to see Pompeii and Vesuvius for a long, long time, but after seeing Naples and the whole downtown area, I actually wish I would have had more time to just explore that. It was a shame that 5 hours was all we got there, but I get it.
Pete, what did you do that day?
I actually stayed on the ship and used the spa. I really wanted a massage in the worst way. I know. Sean went to Herculaneum.
I did, yeah. That was kind of the Herculaneum, like, for people that don't know, seems to be like we've already done Pompeii, so like this time we want to do something a little different, so do Herculaneum. I had never done Pompeii, but everyone on the ship that I was talking to and everything I researched before was saying that it was different, but a little more like my pace. Like, there were still the bodies like laying in the places where they had died forever ago, and that was very interesting to me. So I was
That's an appeal to a lot of people.
yeah, and so I was more into that than I was and the ruins and everything of it were still like very preserved, but people just said it was a little more in depth than Pompeii. It was just way smaller than Pompeii.
It is. It's a smaller location than Pompeii. It is also far better preserved than Pompeii is. So it's a lot more intact. The original town of Herculaneum, and because Herculaneum is really on the base of Mount Vesuvius, where Pompeii was across the water. So Herculaneum was wiped out immediately. They recommend that if you have done Pompeii before, that Herculaneum is a more.
I mean, I asked people that were on the excursion with me, and because I was the only person who had not done Pompeii that was on that excursion, and I said, "Oh, which did you like better?" And they're like, "Oh, hands down, Herculaneum. I liked better," but they were like, "Obviously, you have to do Pompeii because it's Pompeii, and that's the one that's famous."
It was the size that took me back from Pompeii. There's nothing that could have prepared me for knowing how big this area was.
Yeah, it's large,
When we looked on the map after we were done with our little walking tour of it, I'm a huge Pink Floyd fan. They played at Pompeii way back in the day. It's like, I really want to see the amphitheater where they got to play. That would have probably taken about an hour's hike just to get from where we started. That's how big this area was. So while it might not have been preserved as well too, it is mind-blowing to see this civilization that was so advanced just be wiped out in such a quick fashion. So it's very humbling.
One thing about these cruises that I love you see things, I think, in my mind, I never thought I would ever see in my life. As a kid, I never thought I would see the Colosseum or,
Right.
Yeah.
the Trevi Fountain. Now you get to see these things like Pompeii and Herculaneum and all these other places. Rhino, what did you guys do?
I went to Pompeii with Eli and Kylie and Craig, and I agree with him. It was very fascinating. You always learn about Pompeii in school, and hear the stories and stuff. And it was just, I never really actually knew how advanced they kind of were. It was really interesting to go and see that this was essentially set up like a grid-based city that had like there were some places where they were finding pipes in the walls. And saying that they had like running water, and it also was really fascinating to me too to find out that this like old civilization was pretty progressive in terms of like
Sexuality.
So a lot of penises everywhere. Like that's all I'm gonna say.
Because that really needed to come up on this
Oh
show.
my God.
it was a big part of the tour.
from-
though.
It was not
From the standpoint of going with children, some of the places that you will go into
Yeah.
were brothels. And
Herculaneum had a brothel.
yeah,
also.
they all did.
It was very preserved.
And the way these brothels worked, because there were so many people coming into these cities from different cultures and different languages, everything was depicted, all the services available are depicted via drawings. So there are some fairly graphic drawings on the walls.
Did they
so it's
tell
something to
you
keep in
that?
mind.
Yeah, they did. It
Okay.
was
They do warn you
specific-
before you
That's
go
why I
in.
brought it up. It's specifically part of the tour, but it's also not like everybody's embarrassed. It's not an embarrassing thing there. It's actually
you gotta
it's
remember-
part of their culture. And
Yeah,
so,
but remember, too, you're on a Viking cruise that...
The minimum age is
yeah,
16.
16 and older.
Yeah, 16 and older. So I think that they understand that they're not going to get young kids. Obviously, if you're on a different cruise line, you
Well, I
can
mean,
see
I've
that.
done it. I've done Pompeii through a Disney Cruise Line. I've done Pompeii on my own with a private tour guide. In both instances, before we would go into any place like that, we were warned that this may not be appropriate for everybody, and we're going into a brothel. But yeah, that does play a role in the culture.
And this is a preserved. This is what it was at the time. They're not going to sanitize it for your protection.
Well, they were
Or
saying
should
that
they?
that literally was how they used, like, it was their street signs were
okay.
phallic symbols and stuff like that. So that's what I'm.
This was
that's
the
what I mean in
culture at
that.
the
Yeah.
time. The great thing is we still get to see that.
It was just, it was one of those, it was really cool to be transported, back into this time and just be like, it's not what you could fathom until your like feet are there, I guess, it's really cool.
I have a question about your shore excursion.
yeah.
Did you go all day? Was it from the moment you got off the ship to 5 o'clock?
It started at 1:30, and I think we got back actually late. We may have even gotten back about 5:35. I know we were the very last bus that got back there. And I was like, are we going to make this thing? Or what? And they said, no, we'll hold it.
Nice,
Like,
they'll
don't
hold
worry.
the
Yeah.
ship for you.
So we were very late getting back. Because it was so small, I don't know how big Pompeii was because I didn't go, but Herculaneum was definitely not very big. I was shocked at how long we were there, but we went in every single building, and our tour guide knew every building. It was like she lived there or
Yeah, that's
something.
it.
And this is, it can't be said often enough. When you're on a cruise, doesn't matter if it's Viking or any other line, because we mentioned earlier that sometimes we'll just hire our own guide and go. If you are on a shore excursion booked through the ship, and for whatever reason you are delayed getting back to the ship will wait for you. If you are on your own and you are late getting back to the ship, you are SOL. You are not getting. They are going to leave without you, and it's up to you to get yourself to the next port of call to meet up with the ship. You're on your own. So it's
This
important to
was an
remember
unusual
that.
stop because of the length of the time we were there.
Yeah.
The other ones are full day stops. This one wasn't.
I will also say like how every excursion worked, because like in your room you had the headset box, and so you would have to bring your box with you. They every now and then they'd have an extra or two, but I saw people have to run back to their room several times and get their earpiece, and so you would set it every day to like, okay, we're group 12, so set it on 12, and your tour guide would have a microphone and they would speak into it, and so everyone could hear no matter where you were at for your group.
Just for clarification, normally when on most cruise lines, when you do a shore excursion, they will give you the headset so you can hear the guide speak into his or her microphone. On Viking, they provide those for you in the room You have the same ones throughout your trip. So it's up to you to hold on to them. Make sure you bring them with you.
Charge them.
Charge
It's
them.
very good though. I mean, it's I can't tell you how many times you hear the announcement. Group, whatever it is, SC 105. You're going to meet here at this time. Make sure you have your headsets.
Yeah.
Be ready to go. Here we go. So they're very good about that. So after Sicily, next day.
Naples
After Naples
is Sicily.
is Sicily. The next day is Monday. We stop in Sicily, actually in Messina. Kevin, what did we do in Messina? Because I have no memory whatsoever.
We hired a car. We did this a lot. There are reasons we hire a car.
We can't go at the same pace as some of these short
They don't like to be
excursions.
around the unwashed.
Well, stop telling people that, even though it's true.
We travel with people where bathroom breaks are more frequent than are available on a bus. It's hard to tell a bus of 50 people that you have to stop. So
We can't do the walking through the ruins. It's just not something that we're capable of doing. So we
Right.
get a car. And where did we go? What did we see? What happened?
we went all over. Usually
Tell
when
me, because I don't remember.
Okay, Karen.
where did we go? What did we do? What did we say?
What are we drinking?
Outside.
What we do is a lot of times we will ask a driver, because 99 times out of 100 they're local, show me what you think I should see. Now, I didn't have a list of things I wanted to see in Messina, so I was willing to let him show me. And we went all over. We saw the whole island. We spent a lot of time down by the water. We stopped at a fish market. Do you remember we stopped at the fish market and you guys were all fascinated by what they were doing?
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Was that Messina?
You gonna share it with us?
It was just watching the daily workings of a fish market. It was right there along that inlet.
Yeah, I don't remember
Just
that.
say yes, you remember.
I don't remember what we did. What did you guys do? Well, you guys went...
We all went
We all-
together.
yeah.
Yeah, we all went together. We did the,
Mount Etna and
Taormina.
Taormina.
and so the tour started off with a walking tour through Taormina, which just had a lot of great shops. I got to be honest, and for me, that's like a big thing. I love getting my little souvenirs from local shops and whatnot. But you walk through this town, guide is kind of explaining different things to you, but the end result, the end game was this old Roman amphitheater. Now, when you had just done a week in Rome,
yeah.
and you've been to Italy, that was my third time in Italy, fourth time in Italy. You've seen, one amphitheater starts to look like another. So okay, I got in, okay, amphitheater, very nice. I want to go back shopping. So I left the group and I started walking back down and, kind of did my shopping. But they told us going to meet at the Disney knockoff carousel, because there was this carousel where the bus let us off that was like all Disney princesses.
But Disney.
Not
Princesses.
sanctioned, but
Right.
I actually tweeted it out, looks legit. So we knew what time we had to meet back there to get on the bus to go to Mount Etna, which was, we were literally going up a mountain.
Yeah.
Well, the amphitheater, I just want to say too, is I actually thought this was this is one of my favorite spots because out behind where the theater was, you were essentially like on a cliff, really really high up altitude wise in the island, and you could just see you could really see the scope of the island, and the water was just so it was insane because it looked very different from where we were the day before to me.
It was the most panoramic view. We walked in the amphitheater and kind of taking pictures of it, and Mike Holland was like, just wait till we get up to the top, because he had done it before. And so then you climb to the top, and it was basically, you had a 360 view all the way around with mountains and then the ocean, and the water was so blue there. It was
just
a
insane.
beautiful color of blue. It was, the amphitheater itself, it's an old ruins, but the view that you got from up there was just I could still close my eyes and imagine it this very day. So
Me too.
So I actually went to the beach then, and so when we were there in Taormina, because of that really cool view, as I was walking around for €3 each way, you can take a it's not a funicular, but it's they the cable, like a cable car kind of thing, all the way down to the ocean part and then take it back up. And that was a really great way to see the view and to see everything. And it ran like every 10 minutes. There was one. So, I mean, it wasn't like you were going to get left by the ship or anything. And I was big on like, I want to go down and at least like touch the Mediterranean water, because even though we're on the boat, like we're never going to get in the water at this point. So it was beautiful. So I recommend doing that too.
And I also did love the Mount Etna portion. It was a long drive. I will say that.
Oh, yeah.
From
It was long,
Taormina, it was about a solid hour. Yeah. And then once you get up there, once you get to Mount Etna, then you also have to drive up the side of the mountain itself too. And by the time we got up there, we were maybe there for about 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it was one of those situations where you have to run around, take the pictures that you want, and I of course had to smuggle some of the lava rocks from there. But for me,
Ruin the ecology.
Yes, thank you.
Upset the world.
As a nature lover, and like I love mountains, the fact that I was standing on a volcano like that, it just snowed, so we had this great point where the snow was like half melted, so it just made it that much more beautiful. But it was then a long, I think it was about an hour, 45 minutes, 2 hours to get back to the ship.
Yeah, one of the things you have to keep in mind is when you do any kind of ocean cruise and you're stopping at these ports of call, usually the places you want to see are inland. So there's going to be a little bit of travel to get to that thing. We talked about Rome being an hour and a half away. These sightseeing areas, the more popular stuff is a good bus ride away. Yeah. So you got to kind of be prepared for that.
I will say also something I wasn't prepared for, even though we went in late March, there's still a lot of places where it will snow just because the elevation changes so much in Italy, and I'm not used to snow. I think I've seen it like twice my whole life. So I did not prepare for this. I didn't bring clothes for this or anything. So I kind of ran into that problem a lot on this trip. So even looking at the weather before we left, I wasn't expecting snow. Like, hey, we're going to the top of mountains and that kind of thing. So it's definitely something to keep in mind.
How long were we in Sicily? Do we remember?
We were, that was an all day. That was from 8 a.m. to 5:30 p.m.
Full day in Sicily. All right, back on the boat. We have our dinner. We take our sleep, and we wake up in Crotone.
Crotone.
I think it's
Crotone. You can skip Crotone?
Yeah.
Crotone was a disappointment.
And this was a relatively new port of call.
We were the first ship to ever stop there.
And
including Vikings.
So it's not a city that is really set up for these cruises, but it's a more, I'll just say, it was cute. It was a more depressed area, just in terms of its economy. You could tell that we ran into an awful lot of panhandlers on the streets of Crotone. There was some, I'll always find a shopping opportunity. I call them shopportunities. And I actually got, we found some cool stuff. Yeah. And we also realized that the only place on the planet where United Colors of Benetton is still a thing is Italy, because
there's one at every port.
There's one everywhere. Every town you go into, there's a Benetton.
I bought stuff though. I was like, I have to get something because there's one everywhere.
Yeah. So he got some stuff.
Yeah, I did get some.
But no, that was one of the more disappointing ports.
Did anybody do a shore excursion here? Was there?
Yeah, we did. Our foursome, we wanted to do one of the winery tours here because this was actually the big selling point, what everyone wanted to do. There was issues with the signing up at the beginning, and we talked last time about how big our group was. Well, it didn't make things easier when then the group started booking private wine excursions too, and so we couldn't get on with them because, well, we're not on the boards enough like the rest of everyone else is, constantly being up to date on that stuff. One of the things that struck me about looking at this stop on the Viking website was the beautiful castle that they showed, that just right off the coast of the water. And, they took the picture on the most perfect day of the entire year with beautiful blue skies, and the water looked amazing. Well, when you show up there and it's 50 degrees, raining, and ugly outside, a castle right on the coast of the water isn't that amazing. So yeah, we went to the La Castella, and it just, it just wasn't worth it for the price and what you got out of it. It wasn't even like a well preserved castle.
No.
Like at the end of the day, I'm still glad that I did it just to help people in the future not have to do it.
Yeah.
But I would say in the future, if I ever go back to Crotone, unless they completely change this place, I would stay on the ship.
Well, I think, again, he's talking about the first cruise ship to go there, and as Viking sort of gets there, Viking will feel it out and figure out what's the better things to do and sort of tweak and adjust this stop.
I talked to a person in one of the shops. This is like a regular working downtown as opposed to a tourist area.
Right.
There was a drugstore and a shoe store and an eyeglass store.
We took the ship-provided bus, the ship-provided transportation, dropped us
It
off
ran
at
every 10 or
downtown.
15 minutes,
And
and
then
all
we-
it was a trip into downtown. But it would be like a trip into downtown anywhere. There was nothing
remarkable about it.
There was a farmer's market, but that was it. And I was talking to a lady at the farmer's market who explained to me that they were shocked. I forget what day this was. It was a Tuesday.
Yeah.
That there were thousands of people in town on a Tuesday. They just had no idea what to do with it. But as I said, it wasn't just the first ship of the season. Crotone had never been a cruise port
I want to say this,
before.
though. I enjoyed going through that little farmer's market because I felt like this is how these people who live here would shop.
Oh, you could
Right.
see the
It
people
felt
shopping.
very authentic. It was
No,
like-
and that was the thing about it that I actually liked was that it was not an over commercialized cruise port. It was an authentic, normal Italian town,
Yeah, there were no T-shirts.
and
It's true.
but there were places to shop. I will say this: that we did run into a lot of issues with many people working in the shops not speaking English.
Yes, this was one where it was
yeah,
very
that's
little
right.
English spoken, for sure.
The town that we went to, it was like straight up a ghost town.
Yeah.
Like we were walking to where we were going, and they said like the reason all these shops and stuff are here is in the summer it is a popular beach location to go to, but we weren't there in the summer, so that explains a lot. But there was at this one point like a stereotypical old Italian lady with like a black shawl on, and just
Cast a curse on you, Craig?
kind of like that. We walk past and I see it just like come up to the window and then back off, and I'm like, please tell me someone else saw this. No one else did. So,
Well, we went
okay,
to
this
that-
place is haunted.
to
Poor
that
grandma.
store where they
funny,
made the
Greg.
masks, and it was like, oh, this will be a pretty mask, and it was the scariest looking thing that I'd ever seen, in my life. But it was still, it was. Yeah, it was. I would say the least glamorous part of the trip. Is
Oh
how
yeah,
I'll say.
no.
Yeah, for
Crotone
sure.
was kind of like it, and they also. I will say there was like multiple theaters playing Frozen. Like we kept walking around, it was like Frozen, and I was like, why? Okay, I guess they just got this. Like maybe this is new here or something. I don't
They
know.
just got the DVD and they're
Yeah.
playing in every theater.
I just want to say that this cruise itself is not wildly popular. I don't know if that's maybe not the right word. In 2019, there are 2 sail dates.
'Cause again, we
July
gotta-
4th and an August 15th.
Because remember, first of all, it's a one-way.
Right.
It's not a round trip, so a lot of people aren't cool about going in and out of different
Right.
airports. That's kind of difficult for some people when it comes to travel.
In 2020, there are 5 sail dates only. April 1st, May 13th, June 3rd, August 5th, and August 26th. So it was very important to me that when we booked this, that we went from Rome to Venice. I wanted the trip to end in Venice. So if you're interested in this, it's a limited departure kind of thing.
For sure. All right, so after Crotone, next day is Bari.
Land of my people.
This was my favorite.
This was Kevin's favorite. Kevin had a plan for Bari.
I
So I
did.
just want to go ahead and tell
I
your
had
plan.
seen something on TV, and we had prearranged a car to pick us up at the port. I very badly wanted to go see the Truly houses.
Want to say too, the included shore excursion does go to the same place we went. However, again, you're on a bus. There's no stops along the way. It's a
I
pretty
want
long
to say it was an
ride.
hour and a half.
Hour and a half on a bus. You're left because of how these towns are set up. They're medieval towns. They can't accommodate buses. You're let off outside of the town. So there's a bit of walking to get into the place. We hired a car because we knew we could get right to the places
And
we
it's
wanted
Bari
to go.
is a lot of Bari is all uphill and stairs. So we hired a smaller car that took us up to the top of the hill, and we walked down a bit. All I can tell you is it is TRULI, and it was otherworldly. It was everything I had hoped it would be. I hoped it would be. I assumed there was going to be a small clump of these. I didn't realize that big portions of the village of Bari were these truly houses. I just thought they were magnificent.
UNESCO World Heritage Site. It has to do with how these buildings were built during feudal periods, and there's a whole story behind them, but they're
And it
very
was all
cool
based
to
on
see.
taxes,
Right.
and they're circular houses, and the roofs are stacked stone. So that taxes were built on were based on roofs. So what happened was there was a centerpiece stone that if the landlord, because this was during the time of serfs, if the landlord was coming along, you could knock out one stone and the whole roof would
The
collapse.
tax collector came through town, and they all destroyed their roofs, so they wouldn't have to pay
But the
taxes.
house
and
wasn't
they were-
destroyed, just the roof, so they could put the houses back
What was
up.
fascinating about this is you go to see the town and you go see the outside of these buildings, and then there was an opportunity for us. Our guide knew somebody, and we went in one, and we got to be inside someone's actual home that lived like this. It was incredible. I have pictures of it. What did you guys do?
Well, for me, I really wanted to see the town because Bari is the town that my great-grandparents came from. That's where they were born and raised and were married, and then emigrated to the United States around the turn of the century. So I just, kind of wanted to have that experience and walk around the town. There are two very distinct parts to the town of Bari. There's the old town, and then there's the newer section. And we did the I think it was the included
Yeah, we did the
shore
walking
excursion, the walking tour. And it was beautiful, fascinating. Really, so one of the most incredible things I've ever seen just randomly come upon. As we're doing this walking tour, we're walking through the town, and she was moving pretty fast, and she also had a little bit of an attitude. I wasn't really thrilled with our guide. And we walked past this big open doorway, and you kind of look inside, and you see this really incredible model. And Craig, remind me, I'll get you a picture of this to put up. And you stop for a second, and there's this little old man sitting in the back he's making the pieces that go into this model. Well, what this was a recreation of Bethlehem for at the time of the Nativity. And he has created, and it's huge. It's the size of this room. And it's lit, and it's down to every detail. And it was absolutely spectacular. And they had a little box there for tips, so we left him a tip and let us take pictures. And I'm like, okay, why is this woman walking past this?
Yeah.
This
Did you get
is
to see the
amazing.
truly houses?
No.
So I think what happens, to answer that, and I don't want to cut off your story, to answer that, I think when they do a tour like this, some of the times what they've done is they've made arrangements.
They always.
That says we're going to go to this particular spot and perhaps visit this store. We have a shopping arrangement.
They
with
all
the store.
these guides get a kickback when
Yeah.
you shop in stores.
And
All of
that's
them.
what kind of bothers me about these tours is I agree with
But
you.
one-
We do it on our own because you see little
One
stuff
thing
like
that
that.
really disturbed me, though, on the tour, we went into the big church in town. This is where I would presume my great-grandparents got married, because apparently everyone got married in this church.
They're probably big church.
And it was a beautiful church, as they all are. But they took us downstairs to this. I forgot what was supposed to be down there that we were going to look at. But there was a mass going on downstairs. Now, for me, you don't do that. You don't go bring a tour through a relatively small, comparatively small enclosed space. And the guide, I mean, she wasn't talking full voice, but she was talking, and there were other guides. So there were these people there having this intimate mass, and they were all. And I really thought it was inappropriate.
Yeah, it was weird. And there were so many tours too. There was 5 or 6, because it wasn't just our group. There were other groups.
No, there were
as well.
7 other groups
Oh
there.
yeah, and so imagine you're just sitting in church and 7 tour groups
Do you
come
think
through and they're
maybe
like,
it
look
was-
at
you
this
think-
pillar, look at this
I think
wall.
maybe it was like theater. Do you think maybe they had a
don't
mass set up
know.
so that
No,
tour groups could
no.
see them?
I don't
No,
know.
and I was like, okay, I can't stop the tour from coming down here, but I'm not going to be a part of this. And I walked outside.
One of the coolest things, though, when you do the walking tour, because it was we did like the earliest in the day so it gave Pete more time to like get out and see everything in Bari. When you do it that early in the morning, you get to see like all the women in the village. They have their doors and windows open, and so you get to see them make noodles.
They're literally there making pasta.
They make pasta by hand, and like all the husbands sit outside and play cards with each other. But they so that's like how the town works every single day, and they just make like gazillions of pasta noodles every single day by hand, and they sell them in bags. Not that you could do anything with them, but they still or whatever. It was really cool.
It was really cool. And then in the new section of town, I was able to find. I wanted to get something special for my mom from Bari. Was having trouble finding anything, and then we found this jewelry store, and they had a bracelet, a charm bracelet, and the charms were everything was made in Bari, and everything the 3 charms represented Bari. So it was really quite cool, and absolutely loved it.
Again, I have to keep going back to this. It's fantastic to see the Eiffel Tower, and it's fantastic to see, the Colosseum, but it's these little experiences that I think really make a vacation. These little sort of almost intimate things that you just get to see for yourself that maybe someone else hasn't seen. What did you guys do on the trip?
We went with some friends of the Diz who were with us, and we went into a cave excursion. I don't remember what the caves were called.
We went to the Castellan Caves, and then after that was finished, we went to a town called Polignana Amer.
Yeah,
I know
sure
I
that's
butchered
exactly
that.
how it's pronounced. Positive.
He said it very authentically.
Polignana.
I thought the caves were amazing. I thought that was one of the coolest excursions we did in the entire trip. It was just really fascinating to me to do this. I don't know.
I've never done caves in the United States. I know, especially in Tennessee areas, there's a lot of that. Kentucky too. I just never done that. So this was something that I wanted to see and experience. When I was in Austria, the ABD that Pete's going to be going on soon, one of the things you get to do is go up into an ice cave and on the side of a mountain. And so after I saw that, it's like, well, I want to see now what an under the ground mountain looks like. And I was just blown away. Like being in a giant cavern like that, just you have to stand down there to really truly understand how amazing it is that there are so many things happening below our feet naturally over the span of years that you just can't fathom. And we did.
Our tour guide was amazing too. He had I think his wife was American.
She was American, yeah. So
I forget where he said she was from, but he was awesome.
Maybe Chicago, but he was very fluent and was able to really go in depth with us about everything that we were experiencing in the caves and just Atlanta. It was Atlanta.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And the caves were like 2 miles long. We only did like a short portion of
You gotta
it.
get short.
And so it was like, it wasn't too strenuous on anyone, but it was just beautiful. And then the town we went to afterwards, it was just, again, like all these seaside towns, it was all these white houses set up on the side of a cliff and just so gorgeous.
My only complaint about this excursion was that the caves are amazing, and then they took us to this town, and we had about 40 minutes.
Yeah.
So it was enough for the girl to walk us from the bus across the street and essentially like find somewhere to use the restroom and then be like back at the bus. So I was like jogging down the street trying to take videos and stuff like that, and we were trying to find somewhere to eat, but it was beautiful.
This just goes to show with these cruises and things like this is there's something for everybody. Yeah. I would rather hang from my toenails than go into a cave. But you guys
Did you
loved
not
it.
watch the news last week?
Really, exactly.
Well, that was actually interesting because when that news story came up, I was like, it really put into perspective because the caves were just so massive, and then there's parts that were so small, and so it really, I don't know, it like tightens my chest a little bit when I think about those poor people.
I just want to go back a second. The Truly houses are actually in Alberobello. That's the name of the town where they are, but the stop would be Bari.
Correct. All right, so moving on from Bari, we leave Bari, and the next day is Sibenik, Croatia. I practiced that one. This was the stop that surprised me the most.
I think it surprised everybody.
Yeah,
We
were
stopped,
all.
and I thought, do you want to get off? I said to him, do you want to get off the ship? He's like, You know what? We only have a couple more stops. Let's get off.
And
Let's see what's
we've never
going
been to
on."
Croatia.
Yeah. Got off the boat, and what was really nice was right outside where the boat docked, there were taxis. And we walked right over to a taxi and said, "We're looking for somebody to guide us for the day, take us for the day." We had the best taxi driver.
We asked him if he spoke English, and he actually taught English to high school students in Croatia. So we asked him if we could hire him for the entire day. And when we stopped for lunch, we said to him, "What will happen?" He goes, "Well, I'll give you the name of someone else you can call." I said, "Well, are you going to eat lunch?" And he said, "Yes." So he said, "We don't want to lose you, so come to lunch with us." So we had lunch with our driver.
And just a really quick to recap, where do you want? Show us what you want us to see about your town. What are you proud of? Show us everywhere we went. Saw where he went to high school. Show us his father's apartment.
No, I also want to say
It was really cute.
that we were there at the end of March, and we were the first cruise ship of the season. Sibenik is a port that is popular with cruise ships, but we were the first one there this season, so a lot of Sibenik wasn't open.
It was beautiful. I want to point out too, it was walking distance to the town. If you were inclined to do it, you could have easily walked from the boat to the town.
And I had no idea what to expect. And I just kind of did the town, and I was blown away. How absolutely gorgeous that town is. How friendly the people are.
I was shocked by that. Not shocked, but I was pleasantly surprised by that.
One thing to keep in mind, though, that Croatia is not on the euro. They are not. They're trying, but they're not on the euro. So I forgot what their local currency was. But it was, so when you charged on your credit card, it was in that currency. And then, so what they would do is they would do a calculation of this is how much it is in euros. I'm not saying they were being dishonest with that. Their calculation of what it was in euros and mine were two different numbers. So have a currency converter on your phone that you can check and make sure what the price is in U.S. dollars or euros. At that point, I'd been in Europe long enough to know what generally what the exchange rate was.
Now, we had the experience that every place we went took euros. They would accept euros as payment.
They would
Except
accept
the restaurant. The restaurant wanted us on my credit card. It was paid in whatever their local currency was.
Kronos, I think it was.
Yeah.
Kronos.
Yeah.
And it was like, one of these things where the bill for lunch was like 40,000.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, and you realize it's $60.
They would take euros if you had cash. They would take them. They didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they would want to give you back their
And,
currency.
right, and your change is going to be in their currency, not in euros. So it was better to do it on a credit card, and it was better just to make sure you're kind of being aware of what the
Absolutely. Always
currency
be aware,
conversion
for
is.
sure.
What was
But
funny was this was a fairly large port. It was a big city, a little bit big town at least. And we all went to lunch, and come to find out, we had eaten in the restaurants right next door to each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was in the restaurant next door. Didn't realize it until I looked at Twitter, and
We had posted
like,
a picture.
these guys are at the restaurant right next to me. So I finished lunch and went over and just hung out and said hello to them.
This
love
is
that day.
actually probably one of the most friendly ports in general because the excursion Kylie and I did, our guide talked a lot about it. Years back, Croatia made the push to make sure that English was taught very early as a second language, especially for tourism purposes. And so, I found that to be true. Anyone we talked to in any of the little places we stopped at was pretty much
they spoke
completely
English,
fluent in English and not Italian fluent where it's you get 3 out of 4 words. Like I'm talking perfect. So it was actually very, very interesting to see because you don't just experience that every day of the week where you're in a tiny, tiny country that you don't think you're ever going to visit, and then they can all speak your language.
I also think I got the feeling that they were usually when you go to a big tourist area, you get the sort of the people waiting on you who are tired of tourists. I got the feeling that the people in Croatia were happy we were there.
Yeah.
And if they weren't, they were really good actors.
Good actors.
We, myself and Rhino and Eli and a couple other people that are Diz fans, we did the Diocletian's Palace and Historic Split excursion, and it was really cool. It was really far. I remember it taking a long time on the bus, but you got to see a lot of the Croatian countryside, which was so pretty. It was so beautiful. Croatia was like the thing I was looking forward to the most because I've never cared anything about Italy, but I like East Europe and stuff. So I was excited to see it. But
you enjoyed Italy.
Oh, I loved Italy. It, like going into the trip, I was like, oh, Croatia, that's what I want to see. So
I thought Split was really beautiful.
Split was so pretty. It was really nice. Our tour guide did tell us that because we were the first ship of the season, there wasn't a lot of traffic. But he said going into Split, he said sometimes it can be like an hour and a half, 2 hours of just bumper to bumper traffic, like during the high season. And I was like, oh my God. So he's like, yeah, this is the quickest we've ever been able to get through here. And I was like, wow, this was really far already. So we got to spend a lot of extra time in the town because of that. And then Diocletian's Palace was so cool. It was really well preserved, and it was also where they filmed some parts of Game of Thrones. So if you're a Game of Thrones fan, like Khaleesi's castle, her dragon lair is Diocletian's Palace. So like that's where it's filmed. So they're like, oh, this happened here and all that. So that part of it was awesome.
Cool.
Okay, well, I will speak about mine. Kylie and I got the gem of one of the many excursions available throughout the entire trip, and that was the Kirka waterfalls. These things sold out instantly before when we were just Kylie had seen these on Instagram before. It's considered one of the most beautiful places in the world. It's where
so it says in the brochure, beautifulest.
Yeah, exactly, it did. And this is like a place Bill Gates spends his vacations here. And so, like, that's how popular this area is. Kirka National Park is known for its waterfalls, and I know it doesn't sound interesting, but I've seen plenty of waterfalls, but these were the most massive in the world. This national park was relatively untouched. It's like what Teddy Roosevelt stood for, like just beautiful nature preserves. They had all these wooden planks around where you could just be walking through all the lakes and waters and get so up close to these massive waterfalls. Like this to me was the highlight of the stop. It was the best thing I saw at any point during the trip. And it's one of those places no pictures will ever do it justice. You have to see it in person. And so if you are planning on doing this cruise and this excursion, you have to book quick because once it's filled up,
that's very popular.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes they'll add more excursions. They did that for a couple, but this was not one of the ones that they opened up another bus for.
Excellent. Yeah, Sibenik was a surprise. Loved it. Thought it was a great stop for us. And now we move on to Venice, which in a lot of ways is sort of the carrot at the end of the stick. It's the jewel of one of the reasons why we took this cruise and we wanted to be on this cruise is we love Venice.
Venice
is incredible.
Beautiful.
This cruise overnights in Venice, which is a great plus because you have extra time in Venice. And because it overnights, you don't have to get back to the ship at a certain time. You could stay out at night and enjoy the nightlife in Venice. We stayed extra days, but we'll talk about sort of the boat stuff. We just did what we normally do. We got off the boat, got on Vaporetta, went over and enjoyed Venice.
We always stay near St. Mark's Square, and we have explored that a lot. That's some really high-end shopping there. It's a very touristy area. St. Mark's Square is kind of the epicenter of Venice. We did something different this time. We got on the Vaporetto and went over and explored the other side of the island. And there's no lack of things to see and do. The Rialto Market is over there, the Rialto Bridge. So there's a great deal to see and do, but it was fun to get out of what we already knew.
We stumbled across a restaurant, and I'm going to provide Craig with a small video that, first of all, was incredible. The food was incredible. Tell them about the dessert we had at this restaurant.
They had a gentleman making these throughout the meal, and I kind of couldn't pay attention to what I was eating. The food was spectacular, and it was just off the Rialto Bridge area, and we were hungry, and we were looking. It's very crowded there. It's like Main Street during the fireworks crowded. And we were looking to get out of it, and I saw a sign that said restaurant, but it was down an alley. And the joke is that's where the dead hookers were killed, or where the hookers were found. We walked down this alley, and we found this restaurant, and it was, in one word, spectacular. I'm hoping everybody knows what chocolate ganache is. It's like really, really thick chocolate frosting, and they kept it in the refrigerator. And the man would take out the ice cream, and there were 2 small scoops of mint chip ice cream, and then he would take this big glob of chocolate ganache and stick it in what we used to call a ricer. It's a little metal thing, like if you wanted to put mashed potatoes through it or something. And what he would do is he made chocolate spaghetti out of this ganache and laid it on top of the chocolate ice cream, and it was supposed to taste like an Andes candy, or an there's another one called After 8 Mint. It's that chocolate and mint flavor. All I can tell you is it was so good. I don't care for mint ice cream, so I had mine on vanilla. Everybody that was there were 8 of us, and every time we get together, it's like, should we go back to Venice to go to this restaurant?
It has
Spectacular.
it has been my experience in Venice that the best restaurants are down those dark, scary alleys.
Absolutely.
Every amazing place I've eaten in Venice.
You have to wander.
John and I found a restaurant one time, and we were just tired of walking, and the restaurant had 4 seats. So John and I took up more than half of the restaurant. But the food is, you've got to get away from the tourist areas.
So, Pete, what did you do in Venice?
Sean and I decided to kind of go off on our own and got a car and driver, and we went out to a town called Bassano del Grappa. And this is actually the town where grappa originated from. And it was...
Dead.
It was dead.
Yeah.
There was not a lot going on, but we did come across this really cool restaurant.
Were they handmade? Everything was very fresh.
Everything was really fresh and
made from
handmade.
scratch.
And they were so thrilled to have a couple of American tourists in there that they were just and they were really friendly, and so just kind of that exploring thing. Mm-hmm. But then, we spent a few hours. God, I'm sorry, I can't remember the names of the different things that we saw there. It was a cool little area to go around. We walked around a lot.
Did you do this because you knew you were spending time in Venice?
Yeah.
So you thought, let's go out and do something else?
Yeah, basically, we knew we were going to spend a few days in Venice after the cruise. So then we stopped in a town called, I think it was Vicenza. Mm-hmm. And because I asked the driver, I said, I need to shop. And he's like,
That's
okay.
not asking, that's telling.
Yeah, well, he said, go to, I think it was Vicenza. There he goes, it was a lot of, as he put it, high-end stores. And there really weren't, but what was there were stores that you don't find anywhere. I got some great stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we bought some great clothes in there. It was this really long street that was full of people, and it was about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So people getting off of work were coming in, and they were having dinner and drinks and shopping, and there was this great atmosphere and some of the best shopping I've had in Italy, outside of Florence.
Wow.
So
That's
it was
cool.
and it was a full day because we left first thing in the morning, and we didn't get back until midnight.
Yeah. It was a long. It was
One
a
of
long
the great
day.
things about staying overnight in a stop. Craig, you did a shore excursion, right?
Yeah, I did the Secrets of the Doge's Palace tour because I was very, very intrigued with going into. It takes you into a lot of the sections that you don't just normally get to go on when you do the palace tour. I wanted to see some of the dirtier, rugged parts of it. This had the potential to be a really cool tour. It's something that you don't have to do through the ship. It's a lot cheaper, about half the price if you don't, but I wanted to see everything we did. I wanted to see it done with the guides, how they help to up the experience. And this is one that completely backfired. We got to St. Mark's Square with our guide, and then she's like, okay, go eat and come back in an hour. And so we're like, okay, so we go and do that. Come back, we all meet, and then we go inside Doge's Palace and stand in the courtyard area for about another 45 minutes. And then finally we finally, one of the people who works at Doge's Palace that runs the Secrets tour finally came up and then gave us an amazing tour through all the back sections. Knew English perfectly, so was able to communicate everything that we were seeing. Just a really awesome tour guide. And then after that was finished, we get handed back over to our normal guide, who is then like, okay, well, you can go back to St. Mark's or you can catch the ferry with me and go back. And we're like, well, we haven't seen Doge's Palace yet. We've heard all these stories about it now, but you didn't take us into it before. So essentially then there was a big group of us, maybe 6 or 8, who then had to go back through and then finally see the palace for the first time to connect what we just saw in this great tour. And so ultimately, it was just run so poorly that it felt like the ship really screwed us over on that.
Was the guide one of the guys from the ship who did that? That's unusual.
Yeah, it was a Viking ship guide.
That's weird.
And the actual tour guide then, once we got to the palace, they were great. But our one that was handling everything else just was not up to par. And it's like I felt like ultimately we could have did it on our own, and we could have got way more out of the experience for half the price. But that's you live and learn with that.
Right.
So there are some experiences we did this cruise where I know that we couldn't have done it in that timely fashion, making it back to the ship without the help of the tourists.
Right, there's cities like Rome and Venice. You think to yourself, well, I can do this myself.
Yeah.
It's easy enough. It's touristy enough where you can do it. But again, there's experiences you couldn't do unless you're on one of the tours. I think the takeaway from this is really there is something for everybody. You don't have to. A lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want to go on one of these because then I have to go on a group with a group every day, and I got to walk with everybody." That's not how this works. This is your vacation. You do what you want to do, and you figure out the things you want to see. And this is what I love about a cruise: is you have that opportunity to either go with a group and do the tours, or you get to go on your own and experience.
And I think it's even more special, just to be self-serving. Going with a group, we had over 100 Dizzers with us on this trip. So even if you're traveling on your own, you're with a lot of like-minded people. The planning process begins months in advance on the boards. So people are working out all these cool things to do as a group, and do you want to join us for this and join us for that? And that just kind of adds to the experience.
Make
of it.
new friends. You guys are talking about meeting up with someone you met on the cruise.
Yeah, when I go
Walt
home
Disney
for
World?
Christmas, they live in Virginia, so we're going to stop and see them for Christmas too. And then they were down here recently, and I had numbers of some other people that ended up being from Boston, where I'm from, and so I'm going to see them around Christmas too. So I was like, I made some friends too.
Awesome. This was a great cruise. I had a great time.
It was amazing.
Loved every minute of it.
I think it was
First
worth
rate.
every cent.
Oh, yeah.
First rate, and I not only do I think it was worth every penny, I think it was a fantastic deal for the price.
Yeah.
I thought the price was incredibly reasonable. You can spend a lot more and get a lot less on a Mediterranean cruise than you can on Viking.
I agree, 1,000%. I want to remind everybody that we do book Viking cruises. We book both Viking Ocean and Viking River. We offer a shipboard credit for all of our Viking cruises, as we do with any cruise line we sell. It's based on the price of your cruise, and we will tell you that up front. You can get a no obligation quote. Our services are free. All you do is pay what you would pay normally to book the cruise through the operator directly. So there's no fee for our service. Thank you guys for helping me do this show. I really appreciate it. Thank you everybody at home for listening and watching. We hope you have a great week, and we hope you have a great vacation.